Welcome. Convict Thoughts. Hope you guys have had a great Sunday. It's been a nice weekend for me. Thought I would finalize it up by spending some time with you. I want to go over, as you know, the last few videos we've been doing was a series on both a single perpetrator and also a multi-perpetrator that could have possibly committed the Idaho 4 tragedy. So, tonight, I would like to kind of go a little more in depth on what my feelings are on the type of person that may have committed this crime. Doesn't matter if it's an individual or if it's a group, I'm still going to give you my thoughts on who committed this crime, all based off of experience of being around these types of individuals while I was incarcerated. These are not the type of people that are fun to do time with, ladies and gentlemen. You got to watch your back. You got to know who's around you. You got to really fully understand what type of people they are so that you can prepare yourself. Now, I know I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a person that can assess the mindset and the capabilities of these people on a medicine side of things. But I can tell you this, when you sit just feet from them eating lunch and they've got the capability of taking you out in a heartbeat, you get to learn in your surroundings and the nature of how they interact with the people, how they visualize things, how they think, all in a different realm than the medicine side. So please, let's not get into an argument about diagnosis and different mental illnesses and things of that nature, okay? I'm not getting into those type of debates because I'm not personally a doctor. All I'm talking about is these are the type of people I know. These are the type of crimes that they've committed, and this is how it could possibly tie to the Idaho 4 case and what we know about the gruesome crime, the crime scene, the escape, and everything that's been released to us, which has been very little. We know the Idaho 4 was a brutal, up close and personal crime. We know it was done with a weapon that is not a firearm or a quick method to end somebody's life. It was done with a knife. That is a very personalized type of weapon, and not everybody has the capability of doing it. Now, in the penitentiary, you have to learn how to defend yourself, and really the only way to do so when it comes to a weapon is you either make a lock and sock or you get yourself a shank. So you better be able to know how to what we call poke someone, and in there you got to kind of harden the emotions, and you got to go with what it is, and you got to protect yourself. Now, when you're on the streets, it takes a special somebody to have it within them and the coolness and the whole mindset to be able to take a life in such a graphic and horrific manner. So, we're going to go over a couple of people, individuals that I know personally, that I've done time with. I'm going to kind of explain to you who they are and how their type of personality would fit the Idaho 4 crime if they were the ones who were actually doing it, or why would actually nullify them and their personality from the type of person that would be able to do it. First of all, I served the majority of my time on what's called a closed custody maximum security yard. That means it's single-man cells, locked down pretty much 22, 23 hours a day. It's almost like the segregation unit when you're on punishment, except for it's an actual yard. You do get to go outside for rec. You do still get to go to the actual chow hall and eat with other people. So you still have interaction with other inmates, even though it's on a very limited basis. Now, I've also done a lot of time in the segregation unit, not in the PC unit or anything of that nature. I actually was within the segregation, which is the high profile affiliated members, high profile murderers, high profile cases that have to be taken off of yards, not so much for their own protection, but for the protection of the people on the yards. These are violent individuals. They're very cunning. They're very intelligent, and they're all about getting into wreaking havoc and making a field day of whoever they can get their hands on. Now, segregation is also, in most of the states that I did time, pretty much connected to the death row units. So I got to engage with death row inmates quite a bit. Most of the time I was either in California or I was actually in Arizona at the time that I was able to kind of mingle with those, because those were the highest custody yards that I was on. Probably the worst inmates that I were around, and I don't even know how I was able to be kind of in close proximity to him, was Mark Godot, the baseline rapist out of Phoenix, Arizona. He had over 18 counts of murder and rape, and I mean, he had a death sentence. And this was a very conniving, narcissistic man who had served a 17-year sentence prior for violent nature crimes and also sexual assault crimes. He was released early onto parole by the state and immediately got back into committing crimes. He wreaked havoc on the area for over a year. Now, the thing about him is he was a married man. His wife completely loved him. He loved his wife, and she did not know that he was committing these crimes. Now, this type of individual would kind of fit this crime scene in the sense that he was an up and close and personal style attacker. He was a guy that could overpower more than one person at a time, and he used a knife as a weapon. Where he would be negated from this crime scene, and it would not be someone capable of committing this crime, is he was always committing his crimes with the sexual orientation, wanting to rape or sexually assault his victims. So as we understand in this case, there hasn't been any statements made to the effect of it, that any sexual assault or anything sexual of the nature had transpired within this case. So it would kind of nullify him on that sense. Now, if we get to the stalker and the things of that nature, he did stalk his victims, so there was good possibility that would be something that would tie into how this could possibly happen at the crime scene. But again, I think with the taking out of the sexual activity, I think it would negate a perpetrator like him. Now, if you ever want to actually do a little research on his case, it's a baseline rapist, Phoenix, Arizona, Mark Godot. He's now on death row in Florence, Arizona. Now, at the same time, there was another case happening at the exact same time by a person named Dale Hausner and Sam Dietman. They were actually committing crimes at the exact same time as the baseline rapists, so they were designated the baseline shooters. So obviously, just by the designation of what they called these individuals would knock them out of the running for a crime like this, because they're called what I'm called scared and distant murderers. They fire from a distance from a moving car. This way they never have to engage with an actual individual to commit the murder. There's no personal attribute to the crime. It's just more so the thrill, drive-by type of nature to this crime. So if, let's say, we wanted to try to compare people that we know that surround the Idaho 4 case to these individuals, I would compare somebody that would be too scared to get into the scene, that would actually fire from a distance. And I see somebody like that as being someone like the ex-boyfriend, if he was ever, thought to have committed a crime like this. We're talking about Kaylee's ex-boyfriend, um, possibly someone like a Quinn. I'm learning, guys. Somebody actually brought it to my attention. I had to be careful. I can't use the entirety of the names, and I got to say assumed, or yeah, I had to protect myself as a content creator, which is going to protect all of you, because I want to continue to do content for you guys, so I got to protect myself. So everybody knows Quinn. That would be Dylan's boyfriend. He would be kind of more of a scaredy cat when it came to someone that would be a part of a crime like this. I think he would be more of a firearm individual, and he would do it from a distance. I don't think he would have the guts to get up close and get personal with people. Now, another inmate that I served time with, and both of them that I just described, Mark Idaho, I served time in segregation with in Arizona. Sam Dietman and Dale Hausner were snitches telling on each other, so the only time I was actually around them would be actually in the Madison jail there in Phoenix, Arizona, so I never was around them in prison. And as a matter of fact, Dale Hausner committed suicide right after his conviction, and he was sentenced to prison before he was able to hit a yard, which he probably would have hit the type of yard I was on, because he wasn't a sexual predator, so he would have been able to get on the yard I was on. He hung himself in his cell and then took a bunch of pills and some other things. So he took his own life, which goes right to the fact that he was scared, and he, wouldn't have fit this crime well at all. Now, an individual I think that would be very comparable to this type of crime that I did time with in California at Cochran Penitentiary would be Jamie Osuna. Now, Jamie Osuna is a completely sadistic, he's crazy in the mind. He's really crazy in the mind. He's tattooed his entire face to look like the Joker. He's a thrill killer. That's what feeds everything about him. I think he would do anything and everything within his crimes just because it's fun to him. His original crime was stabbing a young lady to death, a mother of, I believe, 5 or 6 children to death at a motel in California, even finishing her off with a pair of scissors in the back and writing stuff all over the wall. It's just a very sickening crime. During the trial, he was just very narcissistic and very crazy in the mind. And then after being sentenced and he was sent to prison, he wasn't able to have cellmates. He was in the same type of cell and I was, a close custody single man. And then out of nowhere, law enforcement and the corrections officers deemed that he was finally capable of having a roommate, which everybody knows he was not. So this was a game being played. They put another young man into the cell with him that had been convicted of murder as well, that was serving a life sentence. Sounds like he had a loving family, but he was a violent criminal as well. And they put him in the same cell, and within a few days throughout the night, Jamie Osuna decided to torture and dissect this man, cutting out his eyes while he was still alive, mutilating him, cutting off his fingers, making a necklace out of the man's ribcage bones, and then completely decapitating him and drawing sadistic signs on the walls and the floor. And the crazy thing, when I was housed on the same run, I didn't really ever chitter chat with Jamie, but I would hear him when it was time to come out of his cell and go take a shower, and I would hear him interact with other inmates and how they spoke to him and he spoke to them. And it was it was nerve-wracking. He was very off and very odd, and it was very obvious he was going to be one that would commit a crime that was so sickening that it would be for a shock value. So when I look at the Idaho 4, with the nature of the crime, it is a very shocking in nature crime, but we don't see the sadistic realm to it with the writings on the walls and the symbols on the ground and all of that. So I would have a hard time putting someone like this individual into that crime scene if he was one that would do that. And I just don't picture it. So when I'm trying to compare individuals to maybe what he is, I would have to, and don't take it as this is exactly what it is, but I would look at the Davids, both David L and David B, and in my mind I could kind of see their interaction together creating something similar in the mindset, just maybe not relegated to the sadistic side of things, just the oddity and the craziness factor of it. And I could see them being more of that rage and thrill-seeking type individual that would commit a crime like this, and maybe even take it to the extreme of, instead of just the kill, they would actually mutilate the body. Now, that's not being said that they are exactly that. I'm just saying, in my mind, from afar, I picture it. Whether that might be, I don't know. Another gentleman on a softer side that I spent time with, he actually has a series on 48 Hours. We actually watched it while we were in penitentiary, and he lived 4 cells down from me at the time, is Doug Grant from Phoenix, Arizona, who used to be the actual physical trainer for the Phoenix Suns. He was convicted for the murder of his wife. And it was one of the oddest reasonings you would ever find. You would think he murdered his wife, he's a rage, it was, she cheated, something went wrong. But what the story plays out, and from what I gathered from him, because the oddity of it, when I used to go to visitation, he would go to visitation at the same time as I. So we would walk together, we would talk, because his new wife, and this ties into the reason why he committed the crime, his new wife would be waiting in the waiting room with my wife to come in to visit me while him and I are walking together. And it's odd sometimes when you're walking with a man that tells you the whole reason why he was in prison is because his first wife asked him to kill her so he could move on and marry said new wife. Very odd. Very, very odd. But I'll tell you now that the man was a gentleman. He was soft-spoken. He was intelligent. He seemed like he would be an everyday businessman that paid his mortgage on time. He didn't feel at all like an actual criminal. So if I had to analyze him, I'd be like, that's the one guy in the yard I don't have to worry about stabbing me in the back or coming at me in a riot, because he's just genuinely a halfway decent man. He married a lady that was very much a mother of children, so they combined their children, him from his first wife with this new wife. So they had a total of about 6 children. They were religious. The wife was a very nice young lady, got along very well with my wife, and just kind of an odd scenario. You would never picture it, but here he was convicted, and they gave him a very light sentence. They actually gave him just like a lower leveled manslaughter type charge because they couldn't prove that he blatantly murdered her. So when I look at someone like that, if they were to commit a crime like this, it's hard to put them into this crime scene because of the violent nature of the crime. And I'm not even sure that someone like this could handle the blood and everything of that nature. But let's say someone with this mindset was to commit this crime, I would have to put it almost like a Jack D. Kaylee's ex-boyfriend type of guy would come in and do this, but it wouldn't be done with a weapon, and that's kind of what takes away from this happening. So far you got Mark Idaho, who would come in and the crime would be very violent but natured towards a sexual orientation. You have the type of person and mindset within a crime that's very distant, kind of like a scared murderer that has to do it from a distance. That would be the Hausner and the Dietman that I explained, that I compared to almost like a Quinn. Then, we get into like Jamie Osuna, who is the crazy and just sadistic one, who I kind of related to the Davids, both L and B, from the frat house, and then here with Doug Grant, who I would compare to like a Jack D. ex-boyfriend that did more of his crime and would state that he did it for the side of love, and whether that be appropriate or not, I don't know. Now, this next one I can kind of tie in a couple of different ways. I could tie it in as an individual, and I could tie it in as a definite person that would show up within a group of people that committed this crime. His name is Pete Van Winkle. He's on death row in Arizona. I served time both with him in his first sentence and then when he came back on his second sentence. So his first sentence was very violent crimes, but they were not murders. They were more like strong-arming and beating people up. He is a known Aryan Brother member. He is affiliated. He conducts business for the affiliation, so when necessary violence has to take place, he's the one that they look at and they say, okay, go get this done, whether it be individually on a small scale or whether it be on a larger scale with numerous people involved. When he left the penitentiary the first time on parole, I shook my head and I knew he was coming back, and I knew he was coming back on murder charges. At that time, I myself was affiliated and I interacted appropriately within the affiliation of the yards I was on. And when he left, he had duties to do while he was on the street. So he committed a violent murder in the Arizona area and was brought back to jail and being held in jail for said charges. And while being held in jail, he had a meeting with a couple of other affiliated members of his affiliation, and he was asked and deemed the person that needed to go into a cell and lay out the punishment on this inmate. And he did. He went into the cell and he stomped on the kid's head, beat him up, and did so for over 30-40 minutes, drug him out on the tier of the jail, left him in plain view for everybody to see, had killed him, and walked down the stairwell like nothing happened, laid on the ground, put his hands out, waited to be cuffed up. He got the death penalty for that. He was first-degree murdered. He got the death penalty, and he was sent back to the yard, and I had earned my way to segregation at that point. Nothing to be proud of, but I had found myself on segregation. So when he got brought in and was awaiting to be moved to death row block, he had to stay in the segregation unit with me. I got to know him pretty well for a second time. I knew him well the first time, but I really got got to know him well the second time, and he was all business. It's what it was all about to him. It was loyalty to his affiliation, and it was all about business. It was about the narcotics money. It was about the crime side of everything, and it was the criminal syndicate organized crime within the penitentiary. That's all his life was now. So I knew it went over. And when he got over to the next block from me, an inmate got let out of his cell to use the phone to call his family, and it went down again. Pete Van Winkle was able to get out of his cell with another member of the affiliation, and they proceeded to take this individual's life. And now they've been disciplined. They're already on death row. I don't know if they're going to take him back to trial or not for that, but that's the personality that I actually see. If you wanted my upright, this is who would have committed this type of crimes personality, it would be said affiliated, numb in the mind, no emotion, handles business. This is what it's all about. It doesn't matter what I see before me. Blood doesn't scare me. Physical altercation doesn't scare me. I'm going to handle you, and I'm going to move on and not even think twice about it. That's who I see within the Idaho 4 home committing these crimes. And people say, well, there's no way they would leave 2 alive. Yeah, they would, because they would scare the living crap out of them and force them to do other parts necessary to ensure the crime went down appropriately, like cleaning up, covering things up, disposing of things, not calling police for 8 hours. These are the type of things that are forced by an individual like Pete Van Winkle, because if you see his work, it's quite intimidating and it will put the fear in you. I guess me, it didn't, as him and I had a couple of fist fights over a few ordeals, but that's the nature of the person I see in the home. Nothing prior to what I've stated fits the mold, but Pete Van Winkle and his personality, if you multiply that by 3, you've got the perfect setting for what happened in the home. Or if you take a Pete Van Winkle and you add a David B and a David L to it, that is guided by a personality like that said, this is what we're going to do, here's how we're going to do it, and you just follow my lead. And they're the cronies that are following behind, not the cover-up cronies, but the actual helper cronies. Then you've got, the other people that are helping by the cleanup and everything of that nature. So David L and David B would be a perfect fit to stand side by side with someone like a Pete Van Winkle. Now, we've heard the rumors of the incel and, the stalker. So when I think stalker, I'm thinking more like the Night Stalker with Richard Ramirez, who was a very graphic and up-close and personal type murderer. And he was sadistic, so you take a little bit of Jamie Osuna and you take a little bit of other people, you combine them all together, and that's what you get. And he would be another person that you could really, if you looked at an individual, he could have accomplished this. I don't think he could have done it within a group setting, but he could have easily done it on his own. I mean, we all know Ted Bundy and people like that committed crimes like this on a different scale. And they were known serial killers. So incel to me is far different than someone that could actually commit this crime, because an incel, that's an individual that, you think of like Elliot Rodgers. He took out all those people with a gun. He did it really in a cowardly way, and he did manifestos over it, and we haven't heard any of that stuff in this crime. We don't know of any manifestos or any claims to the actual crime, and I think incels are pretty good about throwing that out there, like, this is why we're doing it, we're proving a point. Now, I was doing a little bit of research on incels. I wanted to know if there were really any out there that utilized the weapon similar to what was utilized in the Idaho 4 case. And there actually is a 17-year-old boy that committed the very first Canadian-based incel-style crime. He stabbed a 24-year-old lady. You can look it up. Her name is Ashley Noel Erzaga, out of Canada. She worked in an erotic massage parlor, and evidently this young man, 17 years old, they won't give a name because he was a minor when it actually happened. It happened in February of 2020. He stabbed not only this young lady to death, but he also stabbed another man and another woman that were at the massage parlor that were able to get out and survive. But that was a quick, got in, handled this type of deal, and I could see that, an incel's going to go to places like that. Now, I could see an incel going to a sorority house and doing the same thing, but I don't think the incel motive fits this type of crime, and I don't think it fits this style of weapon. A stalker is also low-key, that's visually stalking one person. That they're not going to do numerous. They're not going to be, at the crime scene looking at Maddie and then, oh, look at Kaylee, but look at Xana and look at Ethan. And that's not how a stalker would work. They're focused in on the one person. They're going to stalk and hunt that one person. And, when the Gonzalez family came out at the very beginning and said he stalked them and he hunted them, they were driving that incel push because that's what everybody was pushing for on Brian Koberger, was the incel and that type of look for him. And I think many of us are finding out that just possibly isn't true. So I don't connect an incel to this crime. And I can't even really, if I think about the crime and I kind of look at, who could possibly be that way, we know that, the Davids, well, David L. had an issue with Xana, and, Kaylee had said that there was a chance she was being stalked. No name or anything ever came of that. Could there be a stalker version? Maybe. I don't think it fits this crime at all. So, when people just straight out look at me and they say, okay, we want you, based off what you know of the crime scene and some of the evidence, and I don't think the evidence really even matters other than the fact it was done with a certain type of weapon and it was bloody and gory. So let's leave the rest of the crime scene and the evidence all out of play for a minute, and let's just go with what I know from the people that I've been around and had to kind of maneuver through doing my time with. You're looking in this type of crime as a very business-oriented, I'm here with a purpose. I've already stated I don't feel like it was an individual person that committed this crime. I feel like this was organized. This was very direct, because if this was based for one person, there's many of other ways that we can get one person when they're alone and not risk the factor that we're going to have to deal with so many people around us while this is happening. I mean, if you're a stalker or an infatuated person, you want to get to one person alone so you get to enjoy some time with said person. If you have an issue with a couple, you find a way to attack that couple, meaning Xana and Ethan. I separate them from everything around so I could just handle them. You have to understand, in a crime like this, the structure of it doesn't fit somebody that feels as though they're at risk of getting caught. I don't know if that makes sense to you. This is the type of crime scene and crime area that's very easy to get caught. Meaning in the middle of the crime, you get caught. And in this one, we just don't have that. They were able to get away from the crime scene, even though they say, well, we have his phone pings, we have his car in the area, and I've talked about Brian Kohnberger. We have evidence, with the DNA on the sheath, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. Just even from the beginning of the thought of why he would even have tried to have done this doesn't add up. And then also to throw in all the other stuff in regards to him. He's an intelligent person. He's pretty well schooled in what has to be done within this type of crime. If it is a single perp going after a single person to cover the tracks, and he didn't do any of those things. None of them. You're telling me this man's complete knowledge, the encyclopedia's worth of knowledge that he has on digital forensics, just miraculously fell off the earth, and he didn't utilize any of that in the entirety of the crime. That makes no sense, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very direct business, prove a point, get rid of issues, and I keep tying it back to a much larger scale of what possibly was going on in that house that brought heat to it, or what families' issues were bringing heat to the fact their children paid the price. Not everybody's going to agree with me, and I understand, but ladies and gentlemen, there's a little bit of a breakdown. That's my thoughts. The type of people I've been around are easy to signify what type of murderer they are. You've got serial killers that are out there and running around, but their way in thinking of doing things is all based off of the handful of things I've explained to you. Narcissistic, you have those. You have the quiet, more calm, more lovable, more liking of everybody type people. Then you got the sadistic, just doing it as a ritual or just because it's a wild and fun thing for them to do. You have drug-induced, accidental. Yeah, there's so many different types out there, but I think a Pete Van Winkle mentality with 3 people involved of an organization or an affiliation with a higher means above it is what really, really fits the bill within this. Now, there's others out there that work in law enforcement. We've seen them through the years that have been rapists, they've been murderers, they've been, even in the law enforcement, we've seen it. Golden State Killer, and then the other people in Oklahoma, we just saw not long ago a whole group of them get out and beat a man. So there's that whole sense too, and that's a whole nother discussion you can get into if you added the whole law enforcement aspect to this conversation. It's a Convict's Thoughts, ARHayes. Let me know what you think. Just a few of my thoughts for you. You have a great rest of your night. Bye now.